Hi, my name's Jeremy Harbour. I buy and sell companies and I specialise in distressed acquisition. So this is typically businesses that we can buy without using any capital up front and without borrowing money or getting ourselves into horrible amounts of debt. I also teach a course called the Harbour Club where I help people to do the same thing. So I teach people how to source these deals, how to hold meetings, how to prepare the company for exit. We have a great section on financial engineering which can fix most companies' kind of cash flow and profit. But one of the problems that quite a few people come up with, because many people come on the Harbour Club because they want to sell their own business, and one of the things they're worried about is getting stuck in the business when they sell it. Because quite often people want to buy it with a manager or a very experienced person to take the business forwards for them. So how do you not get sold with your own business, get sold into slavery when you do your deal? Well, you need to have a good succession plan. So you need to be able to take on somebody who's going to take that CEO role when you sell it. And I've always had a lot of problem with succession planning. One of the problems is that people that have done the job that you want them to do before don't necessarily want to do it again. So the guy that took a business from 2 million to 10 million in revenue doesn't want to take another business from 2 million to 10 million in revenue. They want to move on in their career and do something different. They don't want to live in Groundhog Day for the rest of their career. So you're really looking to try and find this young, hungry, ambitious person that can run a business like yours. And the best way to find a young, hungry, ambitious person that can run a business like yours is someone that's already running a business like yours. And so the easiest way to succession plan is to merge with another company that has a good CEO in it. Now, people often say that mergers are a merger of egos. You know, everybody's fighting for who's going to run it. Well, if your goal is to effectively remove yourself from the operational day-to-day involvement in the business and effectively become a shareholder, then effectively you can lose the battle and win the war. So you can capitulate and let the other person get the CEO job, and you can come and sit on a beach here with me in Mallorca, drink mojitos and get your report sent to you every Friday with how the company is doing, which sounds a lot more fun than working for a living, doesn't it? So the best way to do succession planning, rather than looking at CVs, which are all perfect, is go and find another company that looks like yours, merge the two together, get the CEO on board, and then sell the whole thing together with its new CEO. So I hope you found that interesting, and I look forward to seeing you on a Harbour Club soon. Hi, my name's Jeremy Harbour. I'm going to talk today about growing your business by acquisition. I had an epiphany a few years ago when effectively I grew my business by a year's worth of sales in an afternoon, and it didn't cost me any money and I didn't have to take any risks with sales and marketing type techniques. But before I get into that, if we go back to the start, growing up I was always quite entrepreneurial. In fact, I started a business when I was 14 years old and I left school when I was 15 to go and pursue that business. In fact, I went spectacularly bust when I was 19, which is a great lesson in humility. I think everyone needs a good kick in the nuts when they're a bit young and cocky. It was a really useful experience, and actually it's really helped me in later life to be able to empathise with businesses that are in trouble, because I know exactly what it feels like to be in their shoes. So basically I was running businesses like this. I was always a firm believer that if you wanted to be successful, you had to start a business and you had to work really hard. And I did sacrifice everything. I put in the blood, the sweat and the years into growing my businesses at the expense of almost everything else in my life. And it was great fun. It's a rite of passage. I think everyone should start a business and have that experience. But one of the things I realised, I was growing a telecoms company at the time, and we'd grown very quickly, organically, so I think in our first year we did a few 100,000, the next year we doubled that, the year after that we doubled it again. An interesting thing happened. We obviously appeared on the radar of quite a few of our competitors. Now our competitors were looking at buying us out, because obviously they could add our revenue to their business, but they didn't have to take all of our costs. So they could get rid of our office and our staff and everything else and just add the profitable revenue, which meant that they would get a much bigger upside from buying our business than we would get from our own business. So I basically spent every week having meetings with these various different telecoms company bosses who were trying to pitch me, and that's the only way to describe it really, pitch me on why I should sell to them and how I should do a deal. And the reason it was a pitch was because there wasn't going to be any money up front. all of these deal structures were quite creative. They were all targeting things that I needed and wanted. And that would help fulfill other needs, but ultimately all the jam was tomorrow, so there wasn't going to be anything up front. Now, fortunately, I had quite a few of these meetings. I think too many people are negative on the phone when people ring up and don't have meetings. But I think I always took the view that it's part of my business education to meet as many people as possible and talk about what it is they're looking to do. And sure enough, after a while, what happened was instead of me having 2 or 3 opportunities to choose from, I ended up with sort of 15 opportunities, and then it made me start to think about everything a little bit differently. And the thought process I had was pretty much, well, at the time I didn't have any money at all, so maybe I could buy a business, maybe I could use the same type of strategy they were doing in order to grow my telecoms company. So I decided to just go out there and start talking about wanting to find a business. Now, a really interesting thing happens when you go out and start telling people what you want. Lots of little signposts pop up that weren't there before. In fact, all the same conversations you used to have, suddenly with this new pair of spectacles on, there's new opportunities. And it didn't take long before I started to get opportunities to talk to other telecoms companies about the possibility of buying them. And I got a few slaps around the face, from not being able to come up with any cash. But sooner or later, I found a 13-year-old telecoms company that was based in the UK. It had some great customers. Nintendo was one of its customers. And I was able to structure a deal with him because he had particular motivations that I was able to satisfy. I was able to structure a deal with him where I bought the business for no cash up front whatsoever. And also I didn't have any borrowing. I didn't borrow money from the bank. I didn't borrow money from the guy that was selling me the business. I didn't have to take on investors' capital to complete this deal. And like I say, I effectively grew the business by a year's worth of revenue in an afternoon. And I had an epiphany. I don't need to start a business and work really hard. I don't need to put all the blood, sweat and years in that I've been putting in before. I can just do, I don't have to run the marathon. I can just do the last 10 yards and I still get the trophy. And that was a really important epiphany for me. And it suddenly made me realize that, maybe I'd been doing it wrong all these years. Or not wrong, but just not the right way. So, and the funny thing was, now when I started looking back at all the books and all the things that I'd read before, with this new idea that you can just run the last 10 yards of the marathon and still get the trophy, I realized that everybody that I thought was telling me to start a business and work really hard, they'd all made their money doing deals. In fact, all of the dragons on Dragon's Den, bought or sold businesses as the way that they accelerated their success and their wealth. So it was almost like, it was a complete paradigm shift. I completely changed the way that I looked at business. And it was around about this time, I basically, having had that epiphany, I went on a little bit of a rampage and I ended up buying lots and lots of businesses. And in the space of 18 months, I had built up a sort of mini empire of businesses turning over about £13.5 million a year on a sort of monthly run rate. We had about 135 staff, all based around the Hertfordshire area in the UK. I became extremely busy doing all of that. I bought a seminar company, was one of the businesses I bought, and this seminar company taught people various business skills and business techniques. And out of the back of that, I kind of thought, well, how would I teach people what I do? And it was actually at one of their seminars I started to write a little script down of how I would do a training course. One of the first things I realized is actually to learn how to buy a business, you really need to buy a business, because it's an experiential thing. So I titled this course The Harbour Club, and I wrote down all the things that would make it interesting for the participant. So how would they source deals? How would they effectively continuously source deals? Because they're not where you think they are. They're not with accountants or insolvency practitioners or people like that. How would they get to have a meeting with these people? Because if you ask the average entrepreneur how's business, generally it's their best month ever, isn't it? So you need to be able to have an honest conversation with the entrepreneur about how things are going and what it is. They then needed to understand the no money down deal structures that you can use, because there's lots of different ones. In fact, on the Harbour Club course, we have 6 core no money down strategies. There's actually kind of 7 or 8 altogether, but there's 6 core no money down strategies that we work through, which shows things like how I was able to buy an air conditioning company for £1, where we met them at 9 o'clock in the morning, and at 5 p.m. the same day we're being introduced to the staff as the new owner, and then go on and sell that later for 6 figures. How we bought a furniture manufacturer for £1, 100%, and again we're able to turn that around and sell that on in a very short space of time, and a whole load of other stuff. So a call centre business. We bought a gym and spa. It was a health club, 15,000 square foot health club that cost 3.2 million to fit out just a few years before, that we were able to buy lock, stock and barrel. And actually the way the deal was structured, we ended up £25,000 in front after the deal was completed. So there's some really interesting techniques that we've stuck in there, and everything is backed up with real case studies. And not only do we use the real case studies with the real company names, but we also give you the documents that we used when we completed those deals. So all of the contracts and spreadsheets and questionnaires and things like that we've had to do. Now, people often ask, how do you buy a business with no money? And my facetious answer is, you need to start with no money and try and buy a business, a bit like I did with that first telecoms company, because necessity is the mother of invention. So I bundled all of that into this course called the Harbour Club, to give people the complete package on how to do things. And the Harbour Club's been running very successfully since 2009. The references and things that people give us for it are always incredibly flattering and very positive. But actually quite a few people just want to come along to learn how to grow their business by acquisition. So they're not so interested in all the turnaround techniques and the insolvency tactics and the exit side of it. Really in the beginning what they're looking to do is what I did in the first place, which is to grow that company by a year's worth of revenue in an afternoon. Now, in order to grow by acquisition, actually one of the most important things is how you find motivated sellers, because these people aren't always in distress, but they are motivated. So you need a consistent tactic that will get you those people. Now, they're not with insolvency practitioners, they're not with accountants, they're not with business brokers. So where do you find businesses that actually aren't really for sale, that you can then put these deals together with? The next thing is then how you have the meeting with them, so that you can have a proper conversation about getting a deal done. And then we go into the sort of legal protection, how you protect yourself from not getting yourself into trouble. You wouldn't like to buy a company that's potentially insolvent and then it destroy the business that you have already. Now, it's very simple not to get into trouble like that, but as long as you know how. And then the next thing is the deal structuring. So how do you actually put a deal together where you're not borrowing money and you're not paying anything up front for the business? So we go through all the systems you need to do that. And then how do you reduce all your upfront costs in doing the deal? So we show you how you do it without any legal fees, without any accounting fees, without any cost of due diligence. We have a really smart system for taking all the due diligence costs out of doing the deal. We tell you exactly how I bought businesses, how I found them, how we got the deal done, the whole thing. And then if you feel that you want to take everything a step further, you can come on one of my Harbour Club courses where we'd fill in all the gaps in terms of how you do the financial engineering, the 7 steps to fixing a company's cash flow. For example, we bought an air conditioning company that hadn't paid its payroll for 2 months. It was £10,000 overdrawn. We were able to fix that within about 6 weeks, so that all the payroll was caught up and it constantly had cash in the bank. We bought another business that was £85,000 overdrawn. Its payroll was due in a week, and the overdraft was personally guaranteed by the owners. So the deal we did there was, if we could get you off the personal guarantee and we can pay the payroll, could we have the company? To which they said yes, and then we used a really clever tactic, which meant we didn't have to put any money in ourselves, but we managed to get the overdraft back to zero, get the bank guarantee cancelled, and we were also able to get the payroll met on time, and ended up with the company, which we were later able to sell for 6 figures. So that's one of the case studies that we use in the course. So if you'd like to find out more, Have a look at it, see how that works, and then maybe I'll see you on a Harbour Club one day in the future. Thank you for listening.
Enjoyed this video? Grab your free PDF report about how to buy and sell companies for a living without having to use any capital or debt. Go now to harbourclubevents.com/report.